Då säger vi hej och varmt välkomna till Aktiedagen som aktiespararna arrangerar här i Stockholm. And we're going to turn this presentation into English again, and we're also going to turn our attention towards the screen because I have Luis Gomes, who is the CEO of AAC Clyde Space, here with me. Welcome, Luis. The stage is yours.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm afraid I couldn't be there with you this morning, but I will do this remotely. I would like to just introduce our company. So AAC Clyde Space, we are a company based in Uppsala. We make satellites, we sell services from space, and we have been operating now for about 25 years. We have quite a wide experience and quite a long experience of building satellites. We have launched more than 30 satellites to date. We have operations in Sweden, in the UK, the Netherlands, the US and South Africa, and we employ around 180 people in these 5 countries. And we specialize in providing components for satellites, in building satellites, and more recently in delivering data and services from satellites. So we have been transitioning from just being a hardware company to being a services and data company over the last few years, because that is an area that is growing faster. It's an area that is where the demand is increasing, and also because it's an area where we see better profits, better growth for the company. And our operations over the years have been, as I say, we have structured the company in such a way that we have companies that are more specialist in delivering hardware, and others that specialize in delivering satellites, hardware also, but also services and data to our customers. And we focus very much on the maritime and energy sector and the farming and forestry when it comes to the data we deliver. And just some numbers. So this year, in the first half of this year, we have delivered a net revenue of around 149.8 million SEK, on a positive EBITDA of 4 million SEK. And our order backlog is now around 443 million SEK. Last quarter was the second quarter in a row that we were EBITDA positive. And as you can see in the graph, we have been, over the last few years, over the last quarters, growing our net sales and our EBITDA with the stated objective of being EBITDA positive in 2023. And we think that is possible, and we are moving towards that target because we see a market that has been very active. We see quite a large, as I showed here, quite a large order backlog, and that has allowed us to actually increase our net sales, our EBITDA, and effectively build a stronger company. And a lot of our growth is a consequence of the increasing need for data and information that we see on Earth. Although we are a space company, we are very much focused on delivering better data, better information for decision makers on Earth. That is our prime target and prime target market. And very much this need for extra information comes from some mega trends, some large societal trends that we see on Earth. Particularly, we see an increased demand for sustainable solutions. We see an increased need to actually address the challenges we've got with climate change, with pollution, with environmental damage that we are doing to the planet. So we see an increased need for more information that allows us to better monitor our planet and also to live better with the consequences of the changes that we are seeing. We are all aware that in the last few years we have seen very large storms and very large weather events that have actually had an impact on people's lives. This impact is quite serious. This impact is actually damaging people's livelihoods, and in many cases killing people. So we have to better manage that. And to better manage that, we need more information. We need to be better at predicting what's going to happen. And we also need to be better at managing the consequences. So when those events happen, how do we manage that? So data from space is critical in doing that. Space gives you that global view from the planet, allows us to manage events on a continental scale. You're no longer managing just the local area, but you can actually manage entire regions. And that is increasingly important when our problems are continental in scale. At the same time, we are seeing a huge growth on Internet of Things. The previous speaker was talking exactly about that. But our ability to control things, to control the world, the environment around us, that the Internet of Things allows us, requires a lot more information to make good decisions. So as we have much more control over our environment, we need to actually have a lot more information to take the right decisions to control that environment. And at the same time, we are seeing a huge increase in the need for information about the oceans, the blue economy. And we should never forget that actually the oceans account for 2/3 of the Earth's surface. And most of what happens on land, in terms of weather, in terms of even our economy, depends very much on what happens on the oceans. And as such, there is an increasing need for information and for data about what is happening on the oceans. And these three trends are driving very much the growth of our business. We see it in the fact that there are many new constellations and many new satellite systems that are being put in space. It's great for our hardware business, but we also see more people coming to us and asking us, we don't want to own satellites, we don't want to own constellations, we want you to give us the data and the information that we need to do our business. And this process of needing more information is driving our business, as I say, and we are capitalizing not only on hardware, but also now increasingly on the space data as a service. And space data as a service is the business where we provide the information, we provide the data, but we own our own satellites, we own our own spacecraft and assets that we then support, that we provide information to our customers. And the benefit for our customers is that they do not need to invest in satellites, ground stations. They don't need to have the staff to actually run those systems. They don't need to become specialists in space if all they want is farming information to better manage farms. They don't need to be space specialists if all they want is to track ships. They know where ships are around the world. So they don't need to actually invest. They don't need to distract themselves from their day-to-day business. We, on the other hand, we are specialists in building satellites. We have all the facilities, we have the ground stations, we have the people, we have the knowledge. So we are very comfortable at doing exactly that, managing constellations, managing satellites, and bringing down the data that the customers need. So currently our constellation in orbit already has 8 satellites, not 6, as on this slide. We've got currently 8 satellites active in orbit. We have another 4 to launch. 3 this year, 1 probably beginning of next year. And we are growing that constellation even further next year. So next year we've got a few more satellites to launch. And this constellation currently focuses very much on providing maritime tracking data and farming information to companies that will then distribute it to the farmers around the world. And we operate in 3 main models of providing that data, what we call capacity subscription. This is usually when customers come to us and say, I want the full capacity of one of your satellites, one or more of your satellites for X number of years. And we effectively build the satellite specifically for that customer, usually with a down payment. And we basically build a satellite or satellites that we will provide those customers or that customer with the data they need for a period of time. We also have another model where we operate our own assets, our own satellites, but those ones, customers will on a regular basis come to us with a contract for a certain amount of capacity. We call that annual subscription, because most of those will renew every year. They'll buy a percentage of the capacity of a satellite that we have in orbit, of the data that satellite produces, and we'll deliver that to them throughout that period. And then we've got, of course, also pay-per access. Some customers come to us and they just want to access some of our data. Last year, for instance, or this year already, we sold to a US news outlet. They wanted to know how many people were using the Arctic Ocean for shipping. They wanted to know how many ships per year were going through the Arctic Ocean. And we've got probably one of the longest records of shipping around the world in our archives. So they access that data. So we allow them with some analytics, we provided them that information. And we're also growing as part of this pay-per access and annual subscription. We're also growing some of our analytics products. So currently we are not yet delivering. That's not a big part of our business, but we are growing that for the future. And if you look at our revenues in 2022, we sold about 16.9 million SEK of space data as a service. But if you look at our current backlog, it's about 166.8 million. What shows the growth, the increasing importance of space data as a service to our business. And currently, looking forward, what we are working is on increasing our farming data service. This is a growing market. This is a market with the challenges that we are having in food production, in feeding everyone on Earth, with climate change affecting our ability to produce food. This is something that is actually growing increasingly important. And we are seeing a lot more people wanting data for these. So we already have 2 satellites in orbit to provide data for the farming and the agricultural sector. We have another one going up. And we are already looking towards the next generation of satellites. So we started the production of 4 more satellites that we will deploy to provide extra data to this sector. We identified one area that is underserviced and will provide that information to the sector. And on the maritime side, we continue to grow our constellation for tracking ships. But we want to go one step further. So working with Saab and Orbcom, we are preparing to launch a spacecraft called Ymir-1 that will be launched later this year to deliver not only tracking, but also to start a two-way communication system. So we'll provide tracking of ships on the ocean, but it will also allow two-way communications. Not for broadband. This is not about people watching Netflix on ships. This is about people receiving critical information about navigation, safety at sea, being able to communicate back and ask questions, maintenance services for the shipping industry, remote shipping maintenance, autonomous shipping. So all those low data volume systems that are extremely important and that deliver a whole range of services that are underserviced right now. So as I said, we are working with Saab and Orbcom delivering these. And recently, last week, we actually announced that we are on a project with the support of the European Space Agency to actually deliver services to the offshore wind farm industry. So this is about supporting their planning and operations of wind farms. This is a growing sector. And we are working with the Scottish Power Company and a few other companies to actually deliver services to this industry. And our objective is to be the first ones to deploy a VDES service. This is the next generation of tracking and communication networks for the maritime sector. So just to give you a flavor of how we are doing this, so in the maritime and energy, we are now growing our AIS, that's the ship tracking ability. We have our first demonstration of the VHF data exchange system to go later this year. This will start the demonstration. We have a series of demonstrator satellites afterwards. And our objective is by 2026 to have a constellation offering global service for VDES. And this will be a first. At the same time, in parallel, we are growing our constellation of Earth observation satellites for the agricultural sector. We are leveraging the work, the funding and the support that we've got from the European Space Agency and from the UK Space Agency. This is allow us to actually deploy this constellation faster, and we are growing that constellation much quicker with their support. And this will allow us to deploy this constellation towards 2025, starting a service in 2024, late 2024, early 2025. And our objective is, as I say, to capture a large part of that sector. So in summary, we are a company that we have quite a long track record of building satellites, operating them in space. We have that experience. We know how to do it. And we see now a great opportunity to grow our business, to go support data, to provide data and services to the world, providing the information that people are eager for and that they need to address the challenges that we have as a society. So I hope this was a good introduction to our company. Thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions now, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. And as a matter of such, there are actually some questions here coming from me, so I will start off immediately with those. And the first question is, what do you see as the biggest challenges with the business that you are in here, the space business? What are the biggest challenges for you?
The challenges are varied. None that we can't address, but it is about the growth of the sector. There have been very optimistic views, sometimes unrealistic, raised a few years back on some companies. And the sector has suffered a little bit in terms of investment, is a general problem that we have seen in the market. But it's I think the market is changing again, is improving. We have seen this year much more activity on the investment front and also on demand from customers. We have had a very good year so far in terms of sales, in terms of new customers coming through the door. So you can see that we have increased our revenue, our net sales. We have increased it this year, but we still are keeping a very high order backlog. What shows that the market is growing again, is demanding more products and more information. So the challenge has been that. Apart from that, there are the normal challenges with technology, with availability of launchers, so rockets to launch our satellites, competition. I think we all have that. So those are the normal challenges, but those are the challenges that we take along with our we get along with our normal business. One challenge immediately is, for instance, is that to supply data we need more satellites, so it's about growth. And that links a little bit to the previous challenges. Is we need the financing to grow our business quickly, and we have that. And then we need to have the low-cost rockets, the services that go with our business to be able to grow our constellation quickly. Because our customers want more data, more information, and for that we need assets in space.
What is the most important things for you in your business then to win the customers? Because I can imagine that there is some kind of competition to get those customers to you. So what is your way to success?
Our way to success is very much about leveraging our experience, what we have for many years been doing in terms of what we know, how to build spacecraft, how to deliver. But also ensuring that we've got the products that the customers want. And this is not just in terms of the hardware, in terms of the satellites that we sell, but of course about the services. So this is why we are investing quite substantially on VDS. That's why we are investing quite substantially on Earth observation satellites. We need to have the data that customers are requesting. And we need to be able to deliver it on time. It needs to be good data. It needs to be delivered timely. So those are the challenges, is to actually be able to do that, is to effectively have the product the customers need when they need it.
Is there any kind of market that you find a bit more interesting in this moment right now?
The two markets that we are operating in terms of data and services are very interesting. So that is a market that the maritime and the agricultural, that's why we chose those. They're growing very quickly. There is quite a lot of demand for that data and for that system. We have quite a lot of demand for that. In terms of the data, in terms of the hardware, for instance, one market that we see very active right now is the market for components and subsystems for small satellites, for slightly bigger satellites than the ones we produce. We tend to produce satellites below 50 kilos. And we see a lot of market now for our products in 200 kilo spacecraft. There are several constellations in Europe and the US being built, and they require components and products. And so we see that market as very interesting right now.
What are the most important aspects when it comes to product development connected to the satellites there? How would you describe the way of that?
As always in the space industry, you have this strange reality where everyone wants new products, more capable computers, but no one wants actually to be the first one to fly them. So having a mixture of well-established products, well-established products with heritage that have flown, that have demonstrated that they work in space, is very important to have that stability, and then be able to show that you do product innovation in a way that does not damage the good things about that product is very important. And then, of course, you have to have a pipeline. You have to show a pipeline of development, and not only that you have the pipeline, but you have the process to qualify those products in space. So we work closely with, for instance, with the Swedish Space Agency, with the Scottish Space Agency, with the UK Space Agency, with the European Space Agency, with Dutch technology offices. They support us in not only developing products, new computers, new power systems, new attitude control systems, but also in demonstrating those in space so that we can gain the heritage for people to trust those products. So that's how we actually have to take forward our technology.
Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the space industry as such. What would you say is the most interesting things to focus at if we look at the space industry in general?
Apart from our products, that of course I always say they are the best thing, our satellites. I would say that the reduction in the price of launch is probably one of the biggest things right now, because it opens the door to a whole new range of applications and to a whole new range of services that we can provide from space. Launching satellites used to be an extremely expensive thing. The prices are probably coming down 7-8 times from what they were a few years back. And that is opening the door to a whole new set of applications. Then, of course, there is the fact that we are now increasingly using constellations of satellites, networks of satellites, and those are allowing us to actually have a continuous real-time monitoring of the Earth. And that is an extremely important thing. It has always been very difficult to have that kind of continuous monitoring. But we are now getting to a position where we can do that, not just in terms of the service areas we are working on, but for instance, some of the technology we are working on with our partners in weather forecasting, for instance. And we are making that available. The kind of instruments we are now deploying used to have 1 or 2 satellites with those instruments. We are now talking about having constellations of that. And that will allow us to forecast weather much better, much more accurately, almost at the local level, much more accurately. And that's very exciting. It's very exciting to see that evolution of the technology and of the business. We're now going to be able to much better monitor everyone's life every day, and address the many challenges we've got.
And we got some time to talk more about competitors. Which kind of companies are your rivals, and how do you do to beat those companies to be the best?
I usually prefer not to name many competitors, but I would say that of course we've got them. They're very active. You have a very spread out, very large number of small competitors in the hardware side. People like to make satellites, they like to make components. So you see a lot of companies coming out with new products, many of which don't have much experience in the space industry. So there is a large number of small operators and small companies. And then you've got a few that have over the years developed products, and they compete on day to day. One of them listed in the Stockholm market also, Gomes space. You have companies that have been acquired. Many of these companies have been acquired. Many of our competitors have been acquired, like Nanoavionics, that is now owned by Kongsberg. And in the US, you've got a series of companies that are now part of large prime and defense groups. On the side of service data and services, you've got very few companies that are doing the same thing we are. There are a few companies operating in the same environment, like Spire, that are neighbors in the UK. We've got a few other companies that are doing parts of what we are doing, but there are very few that are doing the same kind of service, same kind of building satellites, putting them in orbit, and then delivering the services and data from them as we are, particularly with small satellites. You do have the big companies, big operators like Airbus that do some of that. But with small satellites in the kind of scale, in the niche markets we are, there aren't that many.
I see. Now time is sadly up for this time, but it was great listening and talking to you, Luis Gomes, and I wish you and AAC Clyde Space all the best in the upcoming time that's ahead of you now, and it will be interesting to follow you. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.